Final seconds of the game, a chance to score, and the chance has gone begging. If your business's commerce platform keeps missing the target on golden opportunities, get the MVP you deserve. Get Shopify. Shopify is the commerce platform revolutionizing millions of businesses worldwide. Whether you're a garage entrepreneur or IPO ready, Shopify is the only tool that you need to start, run, and grow your business without the struggle. Shopify puts you in control of every sales channel. So whether you're selling signed football boots from Shopify's in-person POS system, or you're vending vintage shirts on Shopify's all-in-one e-commerce platform, you are covered. And once you've reached your audience, Shopify has the internet's best converting checkout to help you turn them from browsers to buyers. What I love about Shopify is how, no matter how big you want to grow, Shopify gives you everything you need to take control and take your business to the next level. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the US. And Shopify is truly a global force, powering Allbirds, Rothy's, and Brooklinen, and millions of other entrepreneurs of every size across over 170 countries. Plus, Shopify's award-winning help is there to support your success every step of the way. This is Possibility, powered by Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/ranks, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/ranks to take your business to the next level today. That's shopify.com/ranks.
Hello, this is international football commentator Derek Ray, and you're listening to the Ranks FC podcast.
Hello, Ranks Squad, and welcome to Ranks FC. It's your favorite transatlantic football podcast, and transatlantic we are today as we're taking a look at the forthcoming MLS season that starts on Friday. Very, very exciting. The 30th year of MLS. 30 teams in MLS now as well to get stuck into. And we're here to give you a bit of an overview about what this season has in store for us across the pond. I'm Jack Collins, and I'll be your host here in London. And joining me all the way from San Diego, it's Mr. Dean Jones. How you doing, mate?
Oh, Mr. MLS, you can call me now, mate, because I'm here. I'm on the ground. First time ever. A full MLS
season ticket holder, Dean Jones.
I am, yeah. Can you believe that? Yeah, so I'm going to be watching it more than ever. I have got a season ticket at San Diego FC, and with that, Jack, you get a free pass to the Apple TV MLS. So that comes as part of your season ticket package. So that's good.
That is good. That's a great little perk.
Yeah. So that's normally $100 a year or something. So I guess they give it to season ticket holders because well, you're going to be here anyway. As soon as you bought a ticket, you might as well have this for free. You can watch the away games. So that's exciting.
That's really good. I like that a lot.
I thought today's show, is obviously an MLS episode, but if you're just starting to listen to this, you're like, oh, I don't know if I care about MLS. Well, don't worry, because this isn't going to be one of those episodes where we go so deep that you feel completely lost, don't know what you're talking about. This is going to be surface level. You'll recognize a lot of names, a lot of teams. You'll have some interest. We'll have some fun along the way. And I promise you, we will keep it so that you are interested throughout this hour. I promise.
So on this note, I've been listening to MLS preview pods across the, listening around, reading the interclub previews. We've done a lot of it on Sirius as well. So I've been quite stuck in over the last couple of weeks. One thing I did notice when I was looking for MLS pods to listen to get a handle on how everything's looking. I've missed quite a lot of the off season because we're bang in the middle of the season, obviously here in Europe. So it's always, I tend to get stuck into MLS once it gets going, but that off season often catches me a little bit unaware. So I was like, right, let's make sure we're aware of all these different things. Let's have a read. Let's have a listen. And one thing I did notice is there's a lot of really, really deep MLS podcasts. There's some absolutely brilliant ones that go club by club. There are deep dives into lots of different things, but there isn't really just sort of a general standard There isn't just an hour long, this is what we're expecting from the MLS season.
Really?
This is what you need to keep an eye out for. So we thought we'd get you covered, not once, but twice this week on different angles. So here on Ranks FC, we're going to be doing our MLS preview show right now. And then on Friday, Sam and Doogie are going to be looking into something slightly different. They're going to be looking a bit into the history and development of the league and how it's changed over its 30 years and why people should be interested in it from that kind of perspective. So 2 different elements on MLS this week, but I'm looking forward to both of them. So let's get stuck in, shall we do?
Yeah, so we'll start with the thing I love, and it's obviously that I've now got a new team to support. San Diego FC, come on the boys. I should probably said that in Mexican, because I think that's what I'm going to be having to, some Mexican, Spanish, I should say, because I'm going to have to learn the language, mate. Like, half the chants I'm hearing are in Spanish. My Spanish is very poor, but... yeah, there's a YouTube channel, there's an Instagram page where like the chants are sung and the words are on the screen. So as I go to my first game in a couple of weeks' time against St. Louis, I'm going to be having to make sure that I've read up on all the lyrics to make sure that I don't sound stupid as I'm arriving. But no, this is really exciting. Like, it's different. I've very accepting of the fact that this is not like going to watch Fulham every week. It's just not. The culture around it is very different. Being at the match is going to be very different. The type of fan is going to be very, very different. But I still think it could be really good. At the weekend, I went to the San Diego FC season kickoff party down at Snapdragon Stadium. I'll be honest, I was expecting a few hundred people to turn up. I thought there'd be a few stalls where you could do like a tombola or something like that. It didn't turn out to be like that at all. There was thousands and thousands of people turning up at the stadium, all clad in like their new San Diego FC merch. And there was such a good buzz around it. It was the first time I've actually been excited and almost like, yeah, able to anticipate that this is going to be fun. I've always kind of been like, I've been reading what people have been saying on like the Instagram posts. Like every time San Diego FC posts, people are moaning about the club crest. They're moaning about the colours that have been used. They don't understand why they haven't signed Kevin De Bruyne. It's just constant moaning. And I was like, I really don't like this.
Who needs Kevin De Bruyne when you've got Paddy McNair?
Exactly, mate. They don't understand yet. But it turns out that type of fan wasn't reflected at all on what I saw at the weekend. And it made me much, much happier. And I saw the supporters section behind the goal, which is where my season ticket's going to be. I went in there and there was a load of the ultras who were going to be in there from, there's a couple of different supporters groups that are going to be leading that, but they had all the drums out and they had all the chants going. There was a couple of hundred of them there that just were constantly just singing and chanting while the players would be unveiled on the stage. And the kids were with me and Taylor was with me. Saw Michael Lewis, one of our Rank Squad patron listeners, bumped into him. He's got a season ticket as well. I bumped into a couple of other people who are like content creators for San Diego FC. They like shouted out to me. I had a good chat with a few people like that. So getting to know a few people. And I'm just like, I'm heading into the unknown here. Like everything I've done in my life through football has become so, I know what's coming. I always know what it's going to be like. I haven't been to a Fulham game this season, but I could go to Fulham v Crystal Palace on Saturday. And I can already tell you every single thing that I'll do from the moment I leave the house to the moment I get home. Like it's a routine, it's set, right? And here I just don't. There's the tailgating, there's the difference in chanting, there's an unfamiliarity for everyone about like what it's going to be like getting there, arriving, getting home, what are the crowds going to be like, what are the lines going to be like, what this team going to be like. No one has a clue what this team's like, right? Nobody. There was like meet and greet with the players at the weekend. No one knew who they were. Like barely any of these players are household names. Chucky Lozano's the only one that everybody like really wants to like get their picture with.
Do you not try and find Luca De La Torre?
Luca De La Torre is definitely up there as like the second tier for sure. Anders Dreyer is a forward that we've got who people are quite excited about.
Dreyer's all right,
I'm excited about Marcus Ingvartsson. He's our new number 7.
So is Sam.
This lad's good. This lad is good. And we've also signed a lad, a midfielder. I think he's Finnish. Jeppe Tverskov. Right? I've watched him for about half hour in a pre-season game. I fell in love with the bloke. Like, absolutely love it. I don't think I'm going to get a San Diego FC like jersey, but if I do, I'm getting Tverskov 6 on the back, mate. I love this geezer. He's the new Tom Kearney.
There you go. You're right. Look how sold you are. That's very,
I'm trying,
very
mate. Like it's you know what it's like. It becomes contagious, and so when you were there, it definitely got you more into it. And even Taylor was like, "I want to come to a game. This is great." I said, "Yeah, I think this will be great." At the weekend, San Diego FC, we play our first game. See that, Jack? We play our first game. LA Galaxy away. That's a tough one, isn't it?
It's a tough start against the
We've never played
champions.
a game. These players have known each other for about 4 weeks. We're playing the reigning champions and the 6-time winners of MLS. Like that's as tough a start, really, as you could get. But they're taking buses up there. You know, there's going to be fans going up to the game. I'm going to a bar here in San Diego, which has been set aside by the supporters group that I'm in. I'm in a supporters group called the Riptides, Jack. That's who I've
Riptides.
that's who I've set my
like the song
allegiances to. I don't know. I didn't absolutely no idea where the Riptides comes from. I've got a feeling they were involved in the old San Diego Loyal team. I think they might have moved across from that. But there's about 8 different supporters groups, and you basically need to be in the supporters union to get the tickets to get into the bit behind the goal. So that's why you have to join up. So yeah, I'll be watching on Sunday. I'll be supporting my new team. It'll be very interesting to understand how long it takes to care. You know,
like, to get
will I
stuck into
care?
it.
Will I care if we lose 4-0 to LA Galaxy?
You should do.
I think I will. I
actually will. Remember now, mate.
More, did you know what actually is firing me up? Because of these naysayers and like Instagram and like they're all so down on the team and down on the build of it all. It's almost like I just want them to prove those guys wrong. And you know,
There's a lot of people have been saying you're going to be finishing bottom of the Western Conference as well. I prove those.
Everyone's predicting it. Everyone's predicting it. Like
I'm not, for what it's worth.
Bottom or second to bottom. Maybe, but then everyone says, but we don't really know what to expect. All we know is that expansion teams always find it hard.
Right? Expansion, they do, fine. But like, there is precedent for expansion teams going and doing well. You know, St. Louis won the Western Conference in terms of, you know, the regular season, and they got to the Western Conference final in their first year as an expansion team. And Atlanta United didn't take too long to get going in the East. Yes, they had a fair bit of, of backing financially, but they did all right off the back of things. We've seen teams who have start really fast. And I think the thing with this San Diego thing is that there is so much. This is new, right? The partnership with Nordjylland, the partnership with Right to Dream, all of that feels like it's different to things we've seen before in MLS. And I think that is something that people are like, we're not sure if it's going to work or not. And that's fair, right? Like it's okay for them to be like, we're not sure if it's going to work or not. But there's no reason to suggest that it wouldn't. Like a lot of these players, you know, you make the point there that a lot of these players don't know each other. Well, a lot of them do. Because a lot of them have all come across from the same parts, right? A lot of them have come across from Nordjylland. And you're saying this about Ingvartsen, who people are excited about Tverskov, who you're excited about. You know, there's a lot of players here who have been in and around the same kind of areas for some time. And I think that helps, right? There's a bit of kind of a transplant of one side into another. And I think that's interesting. I just noticed that Alex Maiton's in this squad. I quite like
we've got
Alex
Maiton
for a little while. I also noticed that Paddy McNair has taken the 17 shirt. So it's not even the who needs. I think you could go with a song. You could go with Who Needs De Bruyne when we've got McNair.
Oh yeah, that'll take off, won't it? I'm actually not allowed to start songs because you have those blokes that stand at the front with their.
Maybe you could have
a
word with the capos and tell them to sing the whole Who needs De Bruyne because we've got McNair.
Oh dear, I can't see that catching on. I can't see it catching on. I just got to make a quick apology to Tverskov because I said he was Finnish. He's not. He's Danish. The guy who's Finnish is called Onni Valakari, and he's great as well. He's the other midfielder who's going to be playing alongside. Valakari's great as well. I just
on loan from Paphos. Yeah, that's a transfer I have not seen before. Someone has gone, all right, let's just loan some dudes from Cyprus. That's quite something.
Oh, mate. I'll be able to tell you a bit more about all of these in a few weeks' time, and we'll do an update. But here we go, mate. MLS season 2025. I'm here, and I'm San Diego. And it's the first time I'm rooting against LAFC.
Yeah. It's interesting. Actually, I was listening to Landon Donovan talk about this, not about LAFC, but about the Galaxy. And he was basically like, obviously I live in San Diego now and I was part of the Loyal, big part of that. But also I grew up playing for the Galaxy. I lifted trophies with them. And I thought it was really interesting the way he put it. He was like, I grew up as a massive Dodgers fan, but my kids have grown up in San Diego and they're all huge Padres fans. So you're not going to go there and not support them. So he's like, I really hope they do well. He's like, but don't ask me who I'm supporting this weekend. And I was like, that's a really, really nice way of putting it.
Yeah,
no, I thought it was nice for him to address it though, as well. Like he's like, this is where I live. This is my town. Like, but also I have so much history with the Galaxy that, I kind of consider them my team, but it's a really weird one to try and do it. Yeah. I thought it was intriguing.
No, definitely. Yeah. So we'll see, mate. I just hope we don't get battered basically on Sunday.
Yes, I hope you don't as well. I also enjoy that you have Juan Pablo Angel's son playing up front, so that's going to be quite something. We'll see how that goes. Born in Birmingham, now in San Diego. We'll see how he gets on. Former LAFC.
He seems quite cool. I like him.
Obviously. Yeah. So yeah, shouts out to Tomás Angel.
Number 9.
After the break, we're going to get into this MLS season, some teams outside of San Diego, looking at some of the favorites, some of the players you need to keep an eye on, and a few of the teams who are going to be gunning for that Supporters' Shield and MLS Cup trophy. Don't go anywhere. Final seconds of the game. A chance to score, and the chance has gone begging. If your business's commerce platform keeps missing the target on golden opportunities, get the MVP you deserve. Get Shopify. Shopify is the commerce platform revolutionizing millions of businesses worldwide. Whether you're a garage entrepreneur or IPO ready, Shopify is the only tool that you need to start, run, and grow your business without the struggle. Shopify puts you in control of every sales channel. So whether you're selling signed football boots from Shopify's in-person POS system, or you're vending vintage shirts on Shopify's all-in-one e-commerce platform, you are covered. And once you've reached your audience, Shopify has the internet's best converting checkout to help you turn them from browsers to buyers. What I love about Shopify is how, no matter how big you want to grow, Shopify gives you everything you need to take control and take your business to the next level. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the US. And Shopify is truly a global force, powering Allbirds, Rothy's, and Brooklinen, and millions of other entrepreneurs of every size across over 170 countries. Plus, Shopify's award-winning help is there to support your success every step of the way. This is Possibility, powered by Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/ranks, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/ranks to take your business to the next level today. That's shopify.com/ranks. Welcome back to Ranks FC, where it's time for our main segment. We're looking around MLS to see what we can notice. So I'm going to hand the floor over to our resident American, Mr. Dean Jones.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, like when you start a new season, you basically predict who wins the league. And that's a bit more difficult to do in MLS because like you have the MLS Cup that is the eventual thing that you actually win to win the whole thing. And you don't really... It's more difficult to do that because you don't know who's going to be in it. And so what you try to do instead is predict who wins the Supporters' Shield, who wins the conferences from the West and the East, right? So before we get into that, I do think we should just take a second to just address the fact that LA Galaxy are the reigning champions. I mean, I didn't expect them to win it last year. So I'm going to say I haven't got them in my... There's 4 teams I basically want to address as the favourites to win it. I haven't got LA Galaxy in there, but I don't want to do them a disservice by not mentioning them in the episode. I think that they're up against it a little bit in the fact that 2 of their DPs, their designated players, are injured at the moment. Pantsil and Ricky Puig, they're both out. And so there's quite a lot there riding on Marco Reus, who he's in his mid-30s now. And, well, yes, MLS is a bit easier than playing in Europe. He's still 35 years old and he's got a lot of work to do there. But ultimately, this team weren't expected to win last year, and they overcame problems, particularly defensively, to show that they could do it. They've now won this MLS Cup 6 times, which is more than anyone else has ever done it. So never write them off. But I would be surprised if they were to put together a run that led them back to that moment once more.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that what they put together under Greg Vanney last year was so impressive. And the way that this team came together and then overcame the injury to Ricky Puig in the final as well, on top of all of it, I thought was exceptional. But with Puig missing most of the season, let's be honest, an ACL that happened in November, you're going to suggest he's not going to be back till September, October at the earliest, and even then, is he going to be back up to speed at that point? That feels like an injury that could rule him out for the majority of this campaign. Top scorer last year, Dejan Jovic, left to join Sporting Kansas City, which is a bit of a shock move, but it looked like the Galaxy needed to get some players off the books in order to balance them a little bit. We saw Gaston Brugman leave as well, who stepped in so admirably for Puig in those late games. Mark Delgado's left as well. They have added a couple of pieces. Zanka joined, which I thought was an interesting one. And then Christian Ramirez joined from Columbus, who's been exceptional and a real kind of one of those players that does make things happen. But I do worry about who leads the line, what that looks like, with the centre forward in there, and without Puig and that over-reliance on Marco Reus, who, was used sparingly, was used a lot off the bench in last season. I wonder if adding to his workload at this point, look, maybe he's now fitter, maybe he's more ready for it, he's had a full pre-season, all of those things. But I do wonder if that is just going to potentially see them drop off a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised. I still think they'll make the playoffs. I don't think this is going to be a complete drop off, but I think in terms of pushing for a shield or pushing to win the West, this is going to be very, very difficult for Galaxy. But Greg Vanney is good at finding solutions. We saw that last year, and I'm sure he'll work this out. I just don't think they have quite the star power maybe to overcome the rest of it. But I would say off the bat that I think the West is a lot weaker than the East this year.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, I'm going to start by picking out 4 teams that are most likely to go on and have success this season. I've picked 2 from the West and 2 from the East. And the 2 from the West are LAFC and Seattle Sounders. These 2, if you go and search through all of the season previews that are out there, they're regularly coming in at 1 and 2 by almost everyone will predict that that's where they come. The lowest that I've seen anyone really predict the LAFC to come is 3rd. The lowest I've seen anyone predict that Seattle come in is 4th. So Jack's probably got different ideas. But when we look at this on face value, LAFC have shown themselves to be very, very strong, even at times when they are light. And I know that some people will have issues with them, particularly in the middle of the pitch this season. But one thing that they have got is a lot of experience in those positions. And I think that it won't be pretty. It won't be pretty at all. It won't be like those early days when LAFC were having their first successes and they played some amazing stuff, right? These days, it's all become a little bit more counter-attacking, a little bit more, let's soak it in and let's see what we can do on the break. And let's hope that Dennis Bouanga has a good game. And it might be plenty more of that. And they're also going to be heavily reliant on Olivier Giroud having a good season. Like, that's going to be very important. But across that front line, they do still have pretty good options. They do have plenty of goal potential and they've got quite a lot of depth. And ultimately in MLS, like, that is extremely important. Like, this isn't a league this isn't like Serie A where the defense will win you the league. That's not how this works. Your front line will win you things most of the time. And I just don't see any way that I can doubt that LAFC are not there or thereabouts. They've had a lot of upheaval in the summer, which again is another reason to question whether they will be able to do it. But I've got some optimism for them, and I think that they will be just fine, and they will be one of the pace setters.
I just think that they've completely torn up this midfield. And yeah, yes, Mark Delgado came in, who I think is a really, really smart addition from an LAFC perspective from the Galaxy. They brought in Igor Jesus from Estrela da Amadora in Portugal, who is definitely someone to keep an eye on. I think 21 years old, definitely has the capacity to make things happen. Brazilian, like a very, very good footballer and a really interesting signing. I think when this one went through, I was like, that's a niche deal. I'm going to have a little bit more of a look into that one. Obviously went from Flamengo, went across to Estrela de Amadora in the summer, and then moved back to that side of the pond, should we say, over in January. So I think it feels like a smart move, that one. But I am a bit concerned that if you just like basically let your entire midfield leave, yes, obviously they're going to continue to be reliant on, a number of key players who have not departed the club. And I think they've made some quite smart additions from a kind of forward perspective in Yoyoboa from the Crew. And then they brought in Jeremy Ebise, who was a free agent, I think, but obviously did a lot of his best work with the Quakes. So you kind of look at it and think, okay, from that perspective, from a forward line perspective, I think they look pretty good. They've added even more pace to what was already a pretty, pacey front line. I'm just a bit confused as to what they're going to do. Now, Odin Thiago Holmes come in on loan from Celtic, which I thought was intriguing for a year. And look, he never really got a go at Celtic Park. So I think that one has the potential to go either way. But I just wonder if they're just going to be left a little bit light in the midfield areas. I think it was 6 midfielders that left the club this summer. They've brought in 2 out-and-out midfielders to actually make the change. So I do think it's going to be interesting to see what this looks like and how much rotation they actually have in those midfield areas.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, you're certainly not on your own to have those concerns. It's there's plenty of people, raising an eyebrow about it, but ultimately most people still give them the benefit of the doubt. Whereas you seem to be leaning a little bit the other way. Now, if that was to be the case, then maybe it's Seattle that take advantage of LAFC and perhaps LA Galaxy not being at their best in the upcoming season. Seattle Sounders finished 4th in the West last year. But yeah, they are predicted to have a good season this time around. The team does seem to have good depth to it. The squad build does seem good. They have certainly improved their attack, and I think that that's probably one of the keys to expecting a bit more from them this time around. We know that in Jordan Morris that they have somebody that's always going to deliver goals if you play the game his way. Pretty much goal every other game, not far off of that. It will be his record. I typically expect that from him.
I think he got 13 last season, so yeah, I don't think you're miles off. But
it's never quite that good. But it's like kind of in my head, I'm always like, he didn't score last week, he'll score this week. Like
Jesus Ferreira coming in though, I think does address some of those concerns. Like there were real concerns, I think, about the Seattle's ability to score goals, and that was potentially the thing that held them back last season. But they seem to be in a good place with that. I spoke to their general manager in an interview the other week on Sirius, and he was talking about the vibe around the place and the fact that people seem to have settled in. And I asked him basically, why is it that every single time it gets to sort of August, September, the Sounders just lock in? And he was like, well, that's our culture. And we look for people that are going to buy into that culture. And Jesus Ferreira has been very, very good, in quite a poor side. And I think that giving him the opportunity to potentially thrive somewhere where the chances are going to be created gives them, a real hope that things can kick forward.
Yeah, and I think it's their signings that probably give them that elevation in terms of hope for this season. Ferreira, definitely somebody that will make a difference to their attacking options and their danger. Paul Areola is also in there. He's been brought in.
They've just brought in a load of slightly above average American players.
Yeah.
Like USMNT players who can't quite get in the squad.
Well, they brought back Kim Ki-hee as well, who did win MLS Cup with the Sounders in 2019. He's a centre-back. And so he just brings more depth into this setup. And they just know that they can't be caught short. And I think that that's something that they're just trying to make sure that they can compete with the very best when they get there. I've seen a few people suggesting that outside of Inter Miami, this is the best squad build. We'll have to wait to see whether that is true. But ultimately, they will certainly give this a go.
Yeah, 100%. And they're always there or thereabouts, the Sounders. And I know that's not really that particular analysis, but it just happens to be the case. And it goes back to that culture piece, right? About the fact that they've drilled it in.
It reminds me of how I talk about Real Madrid every week in the Champions League. Like Seattle Sounders are kind of like the MLS versions of that, because you just can't write them off. You'll always believe in them, and they'll always have a good philosophy in terms of how they've gone about their build. So yeah, they'll be set for good things.
Just one more on the West before you flip us over to the East. And, I maintain my thing, but I know that San Jose Earthquakes came last in the West last year, but they've had a real shake-up. Bruce Arena's come in, and that man just seems to attract trophies when he's in America, right? He is such a kind of veteran of the league, and he does things his own way. They've also brought in Chicho Arango from Real Salt Lake, which was a massive, massive deal. He was top scorer at the All-Star break last season, and he was playing really, really well. Had a fall off at the back half of the season after all of the off-pitch stuff. But I think that's a really clever signing. And then they brought in Joseph Martinez as well, who's obviously slightly on the downslide of his career at this point at 31, but still feels like a smart pickup from Montreal. And I think the Arena likes players who are, have that kind of veteran presence. He's brought in a few different people for here and there, a load from the Revs, where obviously he has people still about. But I actually think that the Quakes could be the story of the season in some ways. I don't think they're going to go and do what the Galaxy did. I don't think there's quite enough quality in this squad, but I think that they might end up going from bottom of the table quite high up into those playoff places because I trust in Bruce Arena.
Oh, wow. Nice. I like that. Okay, let's flip it over then into the East and talk about the team that, if you are just a casual MLS, then you want to know about Inter Miami. Of course you do. They were first in the Eastern Conference last year. They did win the Supporters' Shield, and they just couldn't get the job done and go on to win the MLS Cup. So there's perhaps some conditioning to be done in terms of mentality, in terms of just making sure they're ready at both ends of the pitch when it comes to those key moments. I think they have tried to address that in terms of the players they've brought in. They do seem to have a better defensive build now, whereas before it all just seemed like, well, we'll just score loads of goals. We'll do like what Kevin Keegan used to try to do at Newcastle, score enough goals and we'll win it. It doesn't, it'll give you a good chance, but ultimately you'll probably come up short. And that
you did just say that the goals.
I know. I just thought that's what I said, but you still do need a defence, and unfortunately, that seemed to me to be their biggest weakness. They did set the single points record last season, though, for points across the year. And Messi, of course, missed 15 games last season. So obviously, right now, we can't predict how many games Messi's going to miss. Maybe that should have been a section that we talked about. We can deal with it when we get to the MVP part. But I think the fact that we know that up front, like, this team is going to be great, even with Suarez, like, doing 3-point turns to kind of get into the.
That might be kind. I think it might be 5-point turns at this point.
The poor guy, like, his body's slowly giving up on him now, but he's still getting in there. He'll still get his fair share of goals. But I think the fact that they are padding out the defence with a couple of good options is going to certainly help. But look, Messi's there with some of his best mates, and Javier Mascherano is their boss. They've got to be favourites. They have to be. Like, there's no way you can look beyond that. Will it work out that way? Will they go on to win MLS Cup? Probably not. But in terms of Supporters' Shield again, yes, they should do it.
What was it last year? Messi played 19 games, and part of that was obviously the Copa America, but generally I thought it was quite low. It's probably the lowest ever that anyone's gone and won MVP with having played that many games. They keep him fit for 25 games, they win Supporters' Shield, I think. I think that's probably where we're at with this side. Yeah. I also think that their business has been relatively smart. They've brought in a bunch of Argentinians to help. Obviously, Javier Mascherano knows quite a lot of these players because quite a lot of them are quite young Argentines or have been part of the youth setups that he has been part of, which I think is interesting. But I mean, my main question on Miami isn't really any of this, because I think their business has been fine. I think obviously it's going to be interesting to see how Diego Gomez leaving, obviously, was a big one. I do think that his impact has potentially gone under the radar a little bit because he hasn't played all that much for Brighton yet. But what he did last year was really impressive. And there's also, Leonardo Campagna, who wasn't the crucial element of this side, but chipped in with some big moments here and there, right? And he's gone to the Revs, which I think is kind of intriguing because it's going to be interesting to see just how they go about their business replacing him and who kind of steps into that kind of, if you could call it like a Batman and Robin role, right? The Robin role for a striker who's going to be there, who's not going to start every game, but is going to be needed because of Suarez's lack of mobility, should we say? But also, I don't think he can go and play 90 minutes week in, week out. Who's going to step into that role? Is it going to be someone like Tadeo Allende, or is it going to be someone that they promote from within? Like, I think it's intriguing. Fafa Picault obviously came in as well from the Caps, which is, I think, just quite a smart bit of veteran business, if I'm honest. But I am a little bit concerned about the depth. But more than that, I'm a bit concerned about Mascherano because we haven't seen very much of Javier Mascherano as a manager, right? You know, from that, what we've seen, he managed the Argentine under-20s for a couple of years, and then the 23s. We saw them at the Olympics as well. That was fine. But they weren't great. Right, at the Olympics, they got knocked out in the quarterfinals with a pretty talented team that never really lived up to their billing, I don't think. And you kind of look at what he did with those youth setups. There's nothing huge to kind of look at and say, oh yeah, he did a really, really good job with that from a managerial perspective. So yes, he'll be able to understand the pieces that need to fit around Lionel Messi to get the best out of him. But what happens if you lose Lionel Messi? If he gets injured for 2 months, how is Javier Mascherano going to deal with that? And I know that you could say this with almost any team. If they lose their star man, how's it going to hold up? But I think that Mascherano has been brought in to kind of mold this generation around Messi and see what, make sure that everyone is doing the right things to put him in the best position, which you would do. And it's normal if you have Lionel Messi within your team. But I just have some slight concerns that I'm not completely convinced he's a particularly good manager yet. He might be, but I haven't seen anything to prove it.
Yeah, and obviously, like, new to club management, he's been doing the young age groups of Argentina, very, very different, and just managing different profile of player, different expectations of players compared to when you get into club football. Even if it's MLS, it's still into Miami. The expectation levels are going through the roof. This is a side that is obviously growing a more global fan base. They are different in the way that they're being built compared to most of the other teams across the league. And they have to be successful for the amount of money that they are ploughing into this, right? They're basically the Harlem Globetrotters of football. And it has to work. It has to work. And Messi will miss games. Like, there's no doubt about it. Like, all of him and his mates will miss games. Suarez will miss games. Definitely. Busquets will miss games. Alba will miss games. It's all about...
Alba maybe less so. Alba doesn't miss that many games.
No, true. That's it, compared to those three, certainly. But he's not going to be here for every single game. And it's all about what the build is around them. And do you trust Mascherano who already know what he's doing there? Probably not, because he's never been able to do it before. So you're right, I think, to have some doubts around that. Atlanta United were the other team, just to throw into the mix here. They finished 9th in the East last year, but they've had a very good transfer window. They have definitely upped the ante, improved this squad. They've brought back a club legend in Miguel Almiron, which changes a lot about how this team looks and feels. And they've also broken the MLS transfer record to sign Emmanuel Latte Lath from Middlesbrough, which is a big coup, really. It's a huge signing. There was other teams I don't remember writing a story not too long ago about Leeds and a few other teams like that were looking at him. Like, definitely had opportunities to stay in England or elsewhere in Europe. And he's ended up here at Atlanta United. So he's going to be
$22 million. Big.
$22 million, mate. Atlanta's new number 9. I mean, that's exciting stuff.
He's
like
actually
that.
Not the number 9.
Well, he'll be playing the number 9 position.
He's wearing number 19,
which
I did think was funny. 10 and a 9 put together, mate. That's how good he is. But yeah, I mean, look, he's been brilliant for Middlesbrough for the last year and a half. And you're right, there was Premier League interest. It was something that Fulham, I know, have been nosing around for a little while, but there was more than just that to be having a look at. It does feel like they've added really well. And, bear in mind what happened with the back end of last season and the charge that they went on to get into the playoffs and then obviously knocking into Miami out of the playoffs. Yeah, it came to an end. The fairy story didn't quite go all the way through, but it did feel like suddenly they put some stuff together. And, you bring in a new manager in Ronnie Dyler, who has already won the league already with NYCFC, won MLS Cup already. And I just feel like there's been a complete change in the back room. They've really kind of shifted the dials. And then you go and you bring in Miguel Almiron and Manuel Latelath, and also Keiman Tagashi as well, who came in from Sagan Tosu in Japan. It just feels like a really smart window. It feels like the window that people were looking for. And don't forget, they also sort of brought in the really odd thing where they brought in Mateusz Klich, right? Yeah. Who was at DC United, is still on a DP contract there, but is somehow now playing for this Atlantic side. I don't completely understand it. I'll be completely honest with you. It doesn't really make any sense to me, but it is what it is. But you kind of look at that and you think, well, that's a window, right? That is a massive, massive window. To bring in Klich, Almiron, and Latelath, it completely reshapes, as you say, the forward line. Klich's a midfielder, obviously, but someone who's chipped in with big goals. We saw that at Leeds. Like, I do look at this team and think, okay, the pieces have been put in place now. What can you do about it? I still think they might be a tad light in the center of the park, but, we'll see how it goes. And I think when you add that to some of the players that obviously came in last year and helped to make a real difference. You look at someone like Alexei Miranchuk, who has kind of been forgotten about in the whole thing, who only joined, obviously, in 2024 from Atalanta. That was a big move at the time. And you kind of put it all together with Saba as well, who can do a job, came in from Turkey. He's a Georgian who plays on the wing, I quite like. Xande Silva, who hasn't really set the world on fire, but has been there or thereabouts, and I think there's some interesting things going on there. With all of this, I'm just sort of looking at it and thinking, yeah, there might just be enough here for them to push, especially if there is a period of this season where Messi is out.
Yeah, absolutely. There. I mean, obviously, we don't know exactly how this team will blend together yet, but in terms of a manager, they've got in Ronnie Dyler someone that has a lot more experience of being able to do that than Mascherano, for example. Certainly not as sexy a name in the world of football, but doesn't always need that, right? Sometimes that might be seen to be Inter Miami's biggest fault, is that they just go for the names, and maybe at some point they're going to have to address that. Perhaps in the dugout proves to be the case more than anywhere. So they're the four that we have to highlight as four of the big favourites, mate. Is there any others? I'm sure there is somebody that you've seen off radar that you think is going to go and win the whole thing or something.
There's a couple of teams that I'm really intrigued by. I really do think that it's going to be interesting to see what the crew look like, having lost Cucho Hernandez and Christian Ramirez, that how Wilfried Nancy responds to that and how he builds his team. Look, they've never been a kind of over-reliant on one-player team. So I think that it does feel like they will work it out and that he will work it out. But ultimately, I don't think I can put them in this conversation right now. I do think you can put Cincinnati in here, who had a weird kind of moment, and they lost probably their best ever player. I mean, they're not that old a club, right? In Lucho Acosta, who left for Dallas. And then they signed Kevin Denke, who was touted around Europe, who was having an absolutely phenomenal time in Belgium, was the Jupiler Pro League top scorer last year, and who is, quite a lot younger than Lucho Acosta. And then they bring in Evander, who was Portland Timbers' best player and one of the best players in the entire league last season. So you're like, okay, right, I think that they've lost Acosta and got better. And that is a wild place for Cincy to be right now. But I really do think that this could be incredibly interesting. And that if this clicks straight away, which there's nothing to say that it won't, it's not like they've completely shifted the whole team apart and torn it around. If this works straight away, they're going to be in the conversation. But I've just got a feeling about Charlotte, mate. And
I don't know anyone else say this, so go on.
Well, I said this last year about Orlando, right? And that tended to be quite a good prediction. They didn't go on and win it all, but, they did pretty well on the kind of whole. I just have a funny feeling about Charlotte. What they did last year was, under Dean Smith, they went from quite a porous defensive unit to a really, really impressive defensive unit. In fact, they conceded the same amount of goals as Inter Miami, who obviously ended up winning Supporters' Shield. What they didn't do was score enough goals. Now, Lila Barda joined last year from Celtic and really didn't set the place on fire. But I thought it was always going to take him a little bit of time to settle. They signed Wilfried Zaha in the off-season, and they have Patrick Agerman, who, starred for the USMNT in Cup Camp Cupcake. And I think has the potential to have a fully breakout season. I think you could probably make an argument that last year was his breakout year, but I think this year he could be in a kind of golden boot conversation if everything goes well. So suddenly you've got a front three there that have the potential to absolutely tear teams apart if it clicks, if Zaha can get to, let's say, 80% of his best. Because I think in Turkey towards the tail end, we saw him really tail off a little bit, and he starts to lack a little bit the mobility that made him so exciting early on in his Premier League career. And then he obviously didn't play almost at all at Lyon. So we don't know exactly what shape we're going to get a Wilfried Zaha and exactly kind of what form. But if he's on it, then I think Charlotte have a shot. Because that there is a baseline there with the defensive unit that we saw last year. They don't concede many goals to allow a front three to go and play their game. Under Dean Smith, they have a wily old manager who's now quite got his feet under the table here and feels quite settled in this project. I don't know. I've just got a funny feeling that they might be the surprise package this season. And I wonder if this does click straight away, if they're not in that conversation come the end of the regular season.
Yeah, very good, mate. I like that. I always like one that's a little bit off-piste, and you always deliver, mate. You know what you're talking about. So just a reminder, that was our ranking of teams we think will be in the mix to win the Supporters' Shield. By the way, that is the best regular season record, right? That's how you...
Across both conferences.
Across both conferences, yeah.
Indeed, it is. Right, we're going to take a break there, but afterwards, we're going to be talking about some of the new signings and MVP contenders in MLS this season as well. Don't go anywhere. Final seconds of the game. A chance to score, and the chance has gone begging. If your business's commerce platform keeps missing the target on golden opportunities, get the MVP you deserve. Get Shopify. Shopify is the commerce platform revolutionizing millions of businesses worldwide. Whether you're a garage entrepreneur or IPO ready, Shopify is the only tool that you need to start, run, and grow your business without the struggle. Shopify puts you in control of every sales channel. So whether you're selling signed football boots from Shopify's in-person POS system, or you're vending vintage shirts on Shopify's all-in-one e-commerce platform, you are covered. And once you've reached your audience, Shopify has the internet's best converting checkout to help you turn them from browsers to buyers. What I love about Shopify is how, no matter how big you want to grow, Shopify gives you everything you need to take control and take your business to the next level. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the US. And Shopify is truly a global force, powering Allbirds, Rothy's, and Brooklinen, and millions of other entrepreneurs of every size across over 170 countries. Plus, Shopify's award-winning help is there to support your success every step of the way. This is Possibility, powered by Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/ranks, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/ranks to take your business to the next level today. That's shopify.com/ranks. Welcome back to Ranks FC for our third and final part of this MLS preview. And it's time to talk some individuals. We're going to start by discussing a few of the best new signings, Dean.
Yeah, I've got three here that stand out. The first one you just mentioned, actually, Evander to Cincinnati. The brilliant Brazilian is a really clever move as they look to make up for the departure of Luciano Acosta. He's got a proven track record, this guy, right? He's tried and tested. He is very exciting. And not only could he fill that void, he might even make it better in terms of the way that he elevates this team. We know that in the final third, Evander can do magic, basically. He'll contribute goals, he'll contribute assists. But he also has this amazing vision and a capacity to deliver passes that don't seem possible at times. I think the fact that he's got so much experience helps the team, perhaps even to the levels that you're speaking of them previously in terms of what they're capable of doing and competing for the Supporters' Shield. But more than that, he's also entering a stage of his career where he'll be a leader. And I think that that's going to be key too. He's probably getting to the point of his career now where it's not just about what he can do with his feet, but about the way that he can bring more out of the people around him. And I think that that's what will be as exciting as anything, to see him grow as a player. And, the goals and assists are expected. What's not as expected is how he gets more out of all the people around him. And I think that this just looks to me like one of the best signings of the summer.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that, being, as I said, them able to actually stand up and improve on what they had before with one of, I think, the best all-round players from an attacking sense in the league is a massive step forward for Cincy. And obviously when the Timbers signed him, it felt like a little bit of a gamble. They signed him from Midtjylland in Denmark. And one of the things I was thinking about earlier when you were talking about this San Diego project was how many players have come across from Denmark and been really successful, right? Hani Mukhtar came over, Evander's been excellent, Mikael Ure came over at Philadelphia and did well as well, right? Like, there are some really impressive transfers over there. That probably puts San Diego in quite an interesting place. But from an Evander perspective, I just really, really like that he's come in here, and it took him a little bit of time to put the burden on his shoulders and carry this Timbers team, who, just as an aside, I think might be in real trouble now that they've lost him. They feel like that felt like a big part of the entire puzzle for them. And I don't know quite how they're going to replace him, but he was excellent in Denmark. And then he came over and he's been absolutely excellent for most of his time in MLS, right? Like, he'd been brilliant in the Europa League. He'd been brilliant in the Danish Superliga. Like, to make that jump and continue to perform in the way that he has, I think has been really, really impressive. And now suddenly you get to this point where you're like, right, go on now. The Timbers weren't going to go and win trophies at this point with that rebuild, especially if you are the kind of star man and the only man. This Cincy team feel like they have the parts and the component bits around him to potentially challenge for silverware across almost all fronts. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how he fits in a team that has more than one superstar, and how he kind of tucks into the entirety and the kind of holistic whole at Cincinnati. So I'm intrigued by this. And I think that, I don't want to say it can't fail, because any transfer can fail because of various issues on and off pitch. But this felt like the one with the least risk attached to it. Yeah. I think in terms of a deal, it just felt like the kind of move. And look, it's all been changed by the fact trade for money and the player for cash kind of deals that have happened in recent times and changed over this season. Suddenly it flips the script on who can do what in this league. And now we have this potential for him to go and, for someone who's been already brilliant in MLS, to go and make that step up and prove that he can lead a team to silverware, to a title as well. That's exciting for everyone, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bar the Timbers.
Definitely. Look, someone else who's been there and done it before in MLS is Miguel Almiron, and he's back at Atlanta United. This is, I think, the most exciting one. Like, this has got the most sentiment, emotion attached to it. Like, you've seen the way he's returned to the club. You've seen the videos of him going back into even the canteen and hugging people and saying, "I told you I'll be back." And here he is. When he left Atlanta United to join Newcastle, he was as good as you could possibly be in the league, really. I mean, he was absolutely ripping it up. He'd led Atlanta to the MLS Cup, and at the start of 2019, obviously went and moved to Newcastle to push himself to another level, to see how far he could take his career. Obviously did pretty well at Newcastle. I'd say if you look at it back on it now, like, yeah, there's no real negatives, I don't really think, to be taken from that. It's been clear for over the past almost year that the writing was on the wall for him and he needed to find the right move. And here he is making an emotional return to Atlanta United. I guess the most interesting thing will be exactly how they use him. Where do they play him? But he's going to be so...
I think he's going to play in the 10, mate. Like, I don't know if he necessarily has the pace to play out on the wing anymore.
I was going to say,
that's okay,
yeah.
But I think he's going to play in the 10, and the fact that Latte Lath is so explosive in terms of getting in behind should open up space for him. They have wingers galore at Atlanta, so I think they're going to be fine from that perspective. I'm intrigued, but yeah, it does feel like the right kind of move for him. And it would have felt weird to see him playing in anything but the red and black stripes, right?
Yeah, exactly. But like the the noise that will be created by this guy being back on the pitch will be unbelievable. And you do want him in the 10 because you just want him to be able to basically do whatever he wants. This is a guy that's almost earned that right now. Not many players that you're allowed that freedom, even allowed to make errors and just be like, that's fine, it's Almiron. But I don't think they'll even be expecting errors from him at this stage of his career. There's no reason to suggest here that Almiron is coming back in that much of a worse player necessarily than when he left. He's only 31. This isn't like he's come back at 34, 35. Like, he should still be in great condition. He should still have everything it takes to make this team the best possible version of themselves they can be. This is a great signing. This is one that really strikes fear into other teams as well. They're like, oh no. It's one of those, it's like when he's got an injury knock, you're like, please don't let him be fit. Please don't let him be fit. And he steps out and you're like, yeah, he's going to run the game.
Yes. I think you're absolutely right. And I'm interested to see how they kind of unleash him, whether it's with, wingers either side in order to kick on, or they try and play in a slightly different, like more tucked in formation with inverting wingers is going to be interesting. But I think whatever happens, this one feels like it's going to be a lot of fun. And the emotional aspect of it also really matters. I think here it's about exactly how you can get the best out of him, but also what he brings in terms of bringing people back to the stadium. It's been a little bit empty for the last couple of years of Atlanta have kind of stood down the table, but this gives a kind of freshness and a new energy to people and something that they can cling on to as like a memory of the glory days as well as everything else. So I think you're bang on with that.
Yeah, fair enough. The last one I want to talk about is Wilf Zaha, who's joined Charlotte. This baffled me in a way. I wasn't expecting this. I do have some reservations / concerns about the career path of Wilfried Zaha since leaving Crystal Palace. He's been at Galatasaray, spent a very short spell at Lyon on loan, and now he finds himself at Charlotte. I know that there are people within the game that are a little bit baffled by how he's got here. But I tell you what, as soon as he had those pictures on the announcement of him holding up the Charlotte shirt, I was like, this looks cool. Like, this is something that MLS should be aiming for more. Like, Wilf Zaha, 32, if he's up for this will be unbelievable. This guy will absolutely smash this league up. Like, I just want to see that he has got the enthusiasm for it. That's really what I want to see from the get-go from Wilf Zaha. Like, just enjoy the fact here that you will literally be able to run rings around people if you are in top condition and fully focused. Anything less than that, he won't make a difference. If people can rattle him, if people can get inside his head a little bit, if he doesn't fancy it, he'll just be another player. But if Wilf Zaha can get to be the Wilf Zaha that we all have seen before in the Premier League, this is one of the players that could have an unbelievable season that propels Charlotte to the sort of levels that you were talking about earlier on.
Yeah, I mean, it's why I put them in there, right? Like you suddenly add a piece like Wilf Zaha into a team that's already very, very strong from a defensive perspective, and you're talking about a team that are potentially a contender, right? As long as he turns up, and I think that's the point you make there. A couple more I would add. I do think Chicho Arango to the Quakes could be an absolute game changer. I mentioned it earlier, so I don't want to go into too much depth, but I think that is the kind of move that really shakes things up. And I'm not making a play on earthquakes there. But I do think it is one of those moves that could just flip the script a little bit. And, with all the change there, having a linchpin that that you can rely on, that is going to make a difference in the final third, I think that really matters. So that one, and also I would have gone with Kevin Denke when I was talking about Cincy, but you've already done Evander. So I think Denke is going to be an immediate golden boot contender. And that is a step forward. Two, obviously, big moves as well for USMNT's players, USMNT strikers, I should say, in Jesus Ferreira, who I think will thrive at Seattle, and also Brandon Vasquez, who's gone in at Austin to replace Sebi Driussi, which I think is something to keep an eye on. Now, obviously, he left Cincinnati after a pretty good run there. He went off to Monterrey, where he did all right. And then he's come in now to Austin in a team that I don't think is particularly good. So the reason I haven't put them in, in any of the rest of the categories or talked about this before is because I don't think Austin are going to be making a play late in there. But I do think that Brandon Vasquez might well find a space that he can thrive here. And listening to him talk about his move to Austin and what he's expecting from it, I think is going to be very interesting. So yeah, just want to keep an eye.
Yeah, lovely stuff, mate. I think I'll move it on to the MVP category. You could call this MVP contenders, but to be honest, I'm just going to open it up really as to does anyone apart from Messi actually get this award? Messi, obviously, we've talked about the fact that he missed so many games last season, yet he had done enough during that period to make sure that he got his hands on the trophy. He had 36 goal contributions in the end across the season, and that was enough to get him the award of the most valuable player. But yeah, he did miss a lot of games, which did upset a lot of people at the time. I remember in the build-up to, the voting for whether Messi would get this award, and a lot of people were like, it's not really okay if he wins it because he hasn't played enough times. But you're like, well, but every time he's played, he's been unbelievable. And there's always that factor of, do MLS want Messi to be named MVP? Of course they do. They want to get Messi on as many posters, as many billboards, as many articles as they possibly can. They've invested so much cash in this guy. He is the guy. They still can't believe, I don't think, that they've actually got Messi in MLS.
It upset Cucho so much, he literally left the country.
Yeah, it wasn't great. I mean, he didn't beat him by that much in the end, but it was reasonable enough. What was it, about 5% of the votes I think he won it by in the end? But
I do find it weird that, that kind of postseason isn't hugely brought into consideration when it comes to this, but, equally...
It's weird. It's weird. And again, this is why MLS is so different to the rest of football. Yeah. And there's conversations at the moment about getting it onto the same schedule as the rest of the world when it comes to their calendar. There's obviously been loads of debate about promotion and relegation and all these sorts of things. But at the end of the day, American sport is American sport, and they've tried to keep football in a version that people here.
So it honestly might just be too cold in a lot of places to play soccer in in the winter. Look at the weather right now.
You could argue it's going to be too hot here to play in the summer.
Maybe, but you're kind of looking at it and thinking, what there was the Champions Cup game this week between Sporting KC and Inter Miami that's been delayed due to snowstorms. Do you think, is this what you want in the middle of the season? Actually, you'd be getting into the kind of clutch bit of the season. Do you want games being delayed and piling up towards the fixture list at the end?
No, you're right. I mean, yeah, places are freezing at the moment, around Chicago and places
the Midwest,
like that.
Yeah. You don't want to be playing football in the Midwest in February or anywhere from November to February, to be perfectly honest with you.
No, 100%. So Messi's obviously the man to beat here. We already know that he can miss 15 games and still win the award. So who can really compete with him? Almiron obviously is a prime contender. If Almiron stays fit, if he can do what he's done before, Almiron can run him close. Dennis Bouanga, maybe at LAFC. If
it would take something pretty spectacular, considering I don't have them that high at the moment. But yeah,
you don't. But I love this guy, and I think that if LAFC are to live up to the expectations which they've kind of set for themselves in terms of they always are going to expect to be first or second in the Western Conference, this guy is going to have a hell of a season, and if he can do that, then he's going to be in this conversation. Zaha, obviously.
Evander, I think you kind of made the point earlier. I think if Cincinnati go and win in the East, then it's gonna be in large part down to him or Kevin Denke, and one of them two is gonna run the show. So there's
you're not
maybe
going to have Kevin Denke, with respect, beating Messi to an MVP award if they can help it.
What if he scores 30 goals?
That is the thing. I struggle to believe that. I don't know how. I think the question here actually becomes, how bad does Messi have to be not to win MVP?
Well, I think the thing is, right, so there's never ever been a back-to-back MLS MVP winner, right? That's never happened before. So if anyone's going to break that, it feels like Lionel Messi. Now, I think the point stands from before. I said if Messi is fit for 25 games, I think Miami win the Supporters' Shield. But if they don't, then maybe there's probably an argument to suggest that things change a little bit, right? Like, because if, quite a lot of this argument revolved around the fact that they were the best team, they set the points record, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? And even if he missed so many games, there was an element of, look what they did. They set records. They went through the season. They were brilliant. They won the Supporters' Shield. Fine, right? So I think that at that point, if another team goes and wins Supporters' Shield, and someone is putting up numbers that are maybe not exactly the same league, but let's put them in context. They might be higher than that in a kind of general sense, not on a game-by-game sense or per 90 cents, then maybe that changes, right? Yeah. If Cincinnati win the Supporters' Shield and Evander, gets 20-odd goals and 20-odd assists, and Messi gets 20-odd goals and 15-odd assists off, 10 less games, but Cincinnati win the Shield, then you'd probably make the argument that you have to give it to the player who's been has made a bigger contribution to his side's successes, no?
Yeah, no, it's a fair point.
I think if Inter Miami win Supporters' Shield again, or to be honest, even if they win the East, then I think it's going to be very difficult to make an argument that Lionel Messi will not win it back to back. But if they don't, I think that you can kind of make a jump on that.
Yeah, the funniest thing about the whole Messi thing is we don't even question that he could drop off at some stage.
Nah.
Like, it just doesn't seem plausible, does it? I don't know what it would take, like, beyond an injury, and I don't want to talk about that, but, like, the guy's just so professional. He's so, like, focused. He's not fazed by anything. He doesn't really say anything. He's just going about his life as a footballer, literally making fun out of people and just nutmegging them and walking the ball into the back of the net, like, and curling them in from free kicks. It's still too easy for him. And it has proven to be a really good move, hasn't it? Don't you think now, like, when we're looking at this, considering some of the doubts around it when it first happened, and obviously I'm cynical by nature these days, given my age, I always don't like it, it's just for money. But actually, this does seem smart in terms of the longevity of his career and being able to make the most of what he's got left.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, look, it's been a success. I don't think anyone can point it and say that hasn't been a success. I think the only thing
it's not success until he wins the MLS Cup, mate, surely.
Of course. Like, it's not been an overwhelming success, but equally, in the middle of it, he went and won Copa America with Argentina, so something's working out, right?
Well,
right?
I heard he gave an interview where he said, I'd rather win MLS Cup and give this back.
Yeah.
No, I made that
up. Of course you did. But yeah, I think it comes down to, like, whilst you can, it's a bit like predicting the MVP is a little bit like predicting who's going to win MLS Cup, because you don't know who's going to be there or thereabouts come the end of the season. I mean, we'll revisit this as we go back, but and as we get through the season. But I think this very much depends on how Inter Miami come out of the blocks. We talked about Mascherano, how they actually work and operate under Mascherano. Are they going to be these stonewall favorites as everyone is expecting them to be? Yeah, they're the team to beat. But I think that there have been teams that have done better in terms of rebuilding their squads this summer. Maybe they didn't need that quite as much. Fine. I think there are pieces that have come in to play and players that have come into the league who have the potential to completely change their team's fortunes. And I don't think, and as we saw at the end of last year, that this Inter Miami side are unbeatable, or I don't think it's an absolute given that they're going to run away with Supporters' Shield. I think that they are favourites and they should remain favourites for the time being, because, we have to work with the evidence that we have in front of us. But, you make a couple of leaps forward. We're talking about an Atlanta side that beat Miami in the playoffs. Yeah, it's a bit different. Recreating that over a lengthier period of time and over a 34-game season. But, I mean, they've gone and really, really strengthened in this window. Could they go and put up a similar kind of profile, put up a similar kind of numbers in terms of their league schedule? I don't think it's beyond the realms of possibility.
Yeah, fair enough, mate. Anyone else you can see being a contender in that category before we end?
No, I mean, I suppose, we were quite down on the Galaxy at the start of things, but if it goes well, it's going to be well to do with Gabriel Peck, right? So I suppose that you should probably have him in this conversation at this point. But no, I think that it would take something outside of the realms of what we've been talking about, or a contender coming from nowhere, which is definitely not something that we're ruling out in MLS this season. I think that there are some really interesting teams in the middle of the pack who we're kind of just unsure are going to be there or not at the moment. But I wouldn't put anyone else in the obvious contenders right now. Let's see how teams get on straight off the bat.
Absolutely.
All right. With that, I think it's probably time for us to call it a day. So all that's left for me to do is say thank you very much to our MLS expert, Mr. Dean Jones.
I'm not worthy of that for sure, but let's wait till I've been to a few games and maybe we'll get there. Cheers,
San Diego loyal Dean Jones,
yeah.
We will go with. I've been Jack Collins. This has been Ranks FC and your MLS season preview. Dean and I will be back tomorrow after the Champions League games, doing a Champions League takeaway and looking at who's made it through to the round of 16 from these playoff fixtures. But for now, thank you so much for listening and we'll see you very shortly, Rank Squad. Take it easy. Peace.